Welcome to the Ultimate Dental Podcast, the place where you can learn how to create a dental practice and a business life that you love. Listen in with Dr. David Moffet as he interviews successful entrepreneurs and successful business people and successful dentists as they share their business successes, their stories, and their breakthrough ideas, sharing pearls of wisdom that you can take back to your practice and implement immediately so that you can have that great practice with more patients, higher profits, and less stress. This is the podcast where great dental practices meet with successful business processes. Thanks for tuning in to the Ultimate Dental Podcast, the podcast where thought leaders, industry experts, and thriving practice owners reveal their very best tips, tools, and strategies that will help you grow your dental practice faster. Now, here's your host, Dr. David Moffet.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. David Moffet. I am live in Burrowing, New South Wales. It's Friday morning. It's about 7 degrees. It's winter time, sunny outside, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the podcast studio a good friend of mine, Dr. Uche Odiatu. It has been a while since Uche and I have spoken. Uche and I met in 2011 in the United States, and I think the last time we sat face-to-face was in 2018, years before COVID. So anyway, Uche, lovely to have you. We've been chatting for a little while before going live here, but welcome to my podcast and welcome to the Ultimate Dental Podcast studio.
Hey, it feels great. Love sharing. Great talking with friends like I just talked to you yesterday. So I think we're going to go deep into some really good topics here. So I can tell you got your finger on the pulse.
I think it's going to be good because you're an enigma in dentistry because you're a dentist practicing 3 days a week, but you're well known because you're a professional member of the American College of Sports Medicine. That's how I came to know you as a speaker, because you were speaking on fitness for dentists and you speak on fitness for healthcare practitioners, because as we were chatting briefly before, some dentists and healthcare practitioners aren't walking the walk. They're talking the talk, but they're not walking the walk. And that's really scary, I think, for their patients, but also it doesn't really send a good image out to the world. If you're meant to be living the dream, living the fitness, you should be fit, shouldn't you?
Well, it's, again, healthcare providers, a lot of times you could be teaching something, but you're not living it. You can still be great clinically. You can have amazing margins. You could be able to full mouth rehabs, but you can have a big belly and skinny legs. However, you're gonna spend more time in physio rehab. You'll probably end up at the end of your life challenged with chronic inflammatory conditions. So if you get all your spheres together, you can actually speak more authentically. I think many healthcare providers, we operate in silos. You could be an amazing clinician, but unable to do a push-up. You could be an amazing hygienist and get out of breath collecting the mail going down the street. However, if you get all your spheres in order, it's amazing how patients love a healthcare provider that looks the part. If we're talking inflammation, chair side, let's change that bridge into 2 separate crowns and put an implant in the center to lower the inflammatory burden. It's good not to smell like a fast food restaurant. Your message comes across much more stronger.
So, Uche, have you always been a fit guy, or were you once a slip to the dark side?
No, my mom, never went to university, but from age 6, she was talking about, the best kind of foods. Have a teaspoon of cod liver oil before you leave for school because fish oil is good for your brain. My dad loved academics, loved reading. However, he said, you've been studying enough, go outside and play. So since age 6, and from weight training, bodybuilding, being certified as a trainer, I've basically been doing this for decades. It's who I am. But I still know what it's like to be out of shape because 6 years after I finished university, I did go to the dark side. I got bigger and bigger and bigger because, like all athletes, you tend to think of yourself like your glory days. And meanwhile, you look like Elvis Presley on his deathbed. And you have this vague idea you still look great. At a time, I drifted up as much as 220 pounds. But I'd say from 1996 to 1998, I've now weighed 180, and it's been pretty consistent. I vary about 3, 4, 5 pounds. And that's why I love teaching it. I live it. So it's literally who I am.
All right. 220 pounds, that's 100 kilos. What's 180 pounds in kilos? 76 kilos. There you go. All right. Because apart from our Americans who talk in pounds but don't know what stones are, I think the rest of the world talks in kilos.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting because like you, well, I graduated, I was 70 kilos, but I was just skin and bone, and then I did some bodybuilding for 10 years, and then after I got married, I think I maintained a bodybuilder's diet, but I didn't do the exercises, and so I got up to 93 kilos, and that was my worst. And then I just thought, no, this guy's too fat. In fact, one of my friends said to me, he said, "You look like you've been living in a good paddock," and that was it. And then after a year of losing weight, some of my friends said to me later, they said, when we saw you lost that weight, we bet that you were going to put it all back on, and that was the incentive to keep it off. So. I'm at about 70 kilos myself now, and
Nice.
and it's hard work. The older you get, it's harder to keep it off.
Metabolism, the metabolism is slow, but what the exercise scientists now say is that the fact if someone doesn't do any strength training, by age 75, you will have lost about 20 pounds of lean body mass. So you could weigh the same as you did in college at age 75, but you've lost 20 pounds of lean body mass, which makes most 75 plus very frail. And that's what ends up leading to many people to their demise. I think in the United States, 800,000 hospitalizations happen due to falls, simply by the muscle mass is gone. But if you lift weights in that last decade to 2 decades of life, you can actually keep that muscle loss, which happens naturally, to about 4 pounds, which keeps the stronger senior being active longer, being able to walk around the Great Pyramids of Egypt, be able to walk up the Eiffel Tower, to enjoy your retirement. I think many dentists think about their nest egg, the financial nest egg. They got that figured out, but they don't realize having $3, $4, $5 million in the bank doesn't go well with sciatica, 2 hip replacements, stenosis, spondylitis, chronic headaches, and GERD. So a big part of enjoying retirement, which is literally 60 to 90, 30 years can be fun if you, on top of having your financial house in order, you have your physical house in order.
Yeah, is it ever too late to start getting your physical house in order?
Yeah, great question. I think people often think, is it too late? The body is so forgiving. Your muscles, the exercise scientist Bento Pedersen, he's a PhD in Northern Europe. He said your muscles have no idea how old you are. Your 600 muscles, all they know is that you use them a lot, which is youth, or you sit a lot, which is accelerated aging. And they've done studies now at Harvard, Tufts, and Johns Hopkins with 70, 80, and 90-year-olds. And if they put any of those people who've never lifted weights for 12 weeks, put them on a 3 times a week weight training program, on average, they double their strength. So if you've never lifted weights at age 70, 80 to 90, and you will put on a 12-week exercise program, you can double your strength. So there is no too late. The muscles and the body is very forgiving.
Try not to turn this into a personal diagnosis, but once I had my shoulder replaced, one thing I didn't want to do is have to have that replaced again because it wears out. And so how do you wear that out? You wear it out by doing weight training because it just wears the joint. The artificial joint will wear out. So I've been compromised in that sort of situation, but I've got to get around that, to do my walking, which is aerobic exercise.
Nice.
But arthritis is not a fun illness to have as well. Osteoarthritis is not a fun condition to live with, but more visual, I guess.
But you know what, though? Almost all the modern degenerative illnesses, so anything that's inflammatory, any disease that's inflammatory, the last 4 letters are itis. So hepatitis, colitis, esophagitis, meningitis, osteomyelitis, gingivitis, periodontitis. So all those conditions, even diabetes is an inflammatory condition, cancer uses inflammation in every step in its from initiation to metastasis. Cardiovascular disease is inflammatory. So this is where dentistry and hygienists have it made, because everything we do reduces the inflammatory burden. People go from hygiene frequency from 9 months to 3 months, you reduce the inflammatory burden. You do good scaling and root planing, you reduce the inflammatory burden. You put on a nice shaped, well-contoured crown, you reduce the inflammatory burden. So when I see someone who's got who's got diabetes, or someone who's scared of getting cancer, or even Parkinson's and Alzheimer's is basically being talked about. This is actually Dr. David Perlmutter said it's a lifetime of chronic inflammation. So if you want to reduce your inflammatory burden, show up at the dental office, because everything we do reduces the inflammatory burden and stack the deck in favor of you not getting that disease again, or lowering your symptoms of that inflammatory condition. So all those diseases that ends in itis or inflammation. So as dentists and hygienists, we can actually lower our patients' inflammatory burden by having them see us, come in more often, and have better quality work done.
It's one of those things that's really hard to get that idea into the head of a lot of dental professionals, that their patients should be coming more frequently. And I often have this discussion with my clients as their dental coach, that once that they have patients that enter the periodontal disease door, those people are now committed to coming more often, because they can't reverse it on their own. Exactly what you said. We need to be there helping them to reduce that inflammatory burden in their mouth by keeping their teeth as clean as possible. I ask every patient, if you could if having your teeth cleaned was free, would you come every week? Of course they would, because it feels good and it's better for them. So therefore, why do we allow society, or let alone third parties, tell us that we shouldn't get our teeth cleaned 4 times a year, only twice a year, or some even say once a year?
Mhm.
And we, as dentists, we still have that burden with patients who say, "Oh, it's only a clean.
Yeah.
I'll cancel it. It's only a clean. I'm only coming for a clean."
That's why I think, the word dentist, doctore in Latin, means teacher. If someone is sitting chairside and you have authentic communication skills, which means you're walking the talk, if you tell a patient, I can reduce your inflammatory burden by having you come in from 9 months to 3 months, because inflammation is spewed into your life by being a shift worker. People who stay up all night or work shift work have higher levels of CV-active protein. Obese people, which is 40% of adults in North America, higher levels of CV-active protein. Sedentary people, this is from Henry Lodge in the book Younger Next Year. If someone's sedentary, they have 4 times more inflammatory proteins circulating through their 50,000 miles of blood vessels. As a dentist, you memorize some of these facts, you memorize some of the science. It's very convincing chairside. When you talk numbers to a patient, automatically they think you're smarter. You don't have to mention all the articles and the New England Journal of Medicine, etc. But if you mention numbers, you tell a patient, you come in to get 2 additional hygiene appointments a year, the cost of maybe 500, American dollars. But I can reduce your chance of spending time in a hospital, which in America, if you don't have insurance, it's $6,000 a day. A hip replacement, $52,000. Lung transplant, $800,000. It's a no-brainer. Patients will say, "Doc, makes sense to me. Give me 2 more appointments." It's pretty hard for someone to come across and try and combat that science. But you have to speak from a sense that you are also getting your teeth cleaned. I don't know how many dentists say get your teeth cleaned, and they themselves, they've never seen a scaler or a Cavitron in 2 years. Or they're telling patients to get their amalgams changed to some ceramic inlays, and they still have, 8 huge MODBL amalgams in their mouth. So, but I think if someone's walking the talk, it's very convincing chairside. There's a conviction that happens when someone is walking the talk.
Well, I can tick a box there, Uche. I do get my teeth cleaned by a hygienist 4 times a year. So
Nice.
I actually go to 2 different practices. One knows I go to the other, but the other one doesn't know that I go. And so, yeah, it's and one of my hygienists is so busy. If you miss an appointment, your next available is in 6 months' time. So that's a really nice way to be. But I always feel better having had my teeth cleaned every 3 months. That's for sure. Now, Uche, we touched on this beforehand, and it wasn't something that we were going to talk about, but you were talking about the 7 spheres of life and having things match up. And we've touched on that in saying that, you wouldn't go to a dentist who doesn't get their teeth cleaned, and you wouldn't go to a doctor who's not fit, someone with a big belly and skinny legs. Let's talk about those 7 spheres. What are those spheres, and how do we get that balance in those 7? Because to me, that can sometimes mean like trying to spin 7 plates.
And all it is to acknowledge there's more to you than financial. If you ask a dentist how's practice, she'll say she's amazing because she's grossing 2-3 million a year, but no health whatsoever, or hasn't talked to her, is in a strange relationship with her sister or her brother, or hasn't read a book in 2 years. Or you can have a dentist who's got voracious CE. He or she might be getting 100 hours every year, but they've never talked to their son about things that mattered in years. So when you look at the spheres, you're looking at being basically much a complete human. You look at intellectual. Have you read a book? Are you taking CE courses? 2, do you have a sense of community? Sure, your practice is going well, but when's the last time you helped another colleague in need? Do your neighbors know your last name? 3, financial, which everyone thinks is rocking. But if Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos is still going to work, and Larry Ellison from Oracle, no dentist, no matter how many offices you own, you're never going to catch up. So the financial goal is never reached by a lot of people. So that keeps people spinning and spinning. There's the spiritual. Do you have a spiritual practice or religious practice? And then there's a book called How to Live to 100. One of the 16 traits to make it to 100, people make it to 100 if they have some kind of spiritual practice. There's very few people who are 100, saying, I don't believe in God. So there's something about spirituality that helps balance your adrenal system. There's family. You can be great in your community. You might be giving money to the local hospital. You might be giving to charities, but you yourself, don't have a good relationship with your family. Might be estranged. Physical. Are you exercising? Doesn't mean you have to be a triathlete, but are you taking care of the 3 spheres? Strength training, cardio, and flexibility. Romantic. When's the last time you took your spouse out for dinner? They take your team out for breaks. You bring donuts for the team huddle. When's the last time you brought some treats home when you came home from the office? Clinical. Most dentists think, when you ask a dentist how it's going, I'm doing great. I just did 4 crowns. That's one aspect of your life, so clinically. So the 7 spheres of the dentistry is spiritual, intellectual, community, romantic, clinical, financial, and community. And when you start looking at those 7, not that you all have to be 10 on 10, but just to acknowledge, hey, I haven't talked to my neighbor in a long time. Hey, I'm going to phone my son. I haven't talked to him in 10 years. Or maybe I'm going to make amends with my father because we've had a misdeed. And now you're looking at a complete life, which, Eckhart Tolle and Deepak Chopra and Wayne Dyer makes you into more of a complete being. And, a true Renaissance man or woman is looking at those 7 spheres. So it's more than just financial. Most dentists, at a conference, how to do a crown in 10 minutes, packed, standing room only. How to become a better leader, 4 people, sitting in the last row. So there's something about having a balanced existence leads to a more, I think, fulfilling experience in life, adding more texture to us than just, how's it going? Good. I'm just in the middle of a full mouth rehab. So there we go.
A lot for, I would bet that every listener and every viewer on this podcast is missing in at least one of those spheres, and probably missing in more than half of those spheres. And there's something for them all to, at the end of the podcast, just go and investigate what are the spheres and what are your scores like. And I think, Uche, it's also a matter of, you can draw those spheres as 7 lines and then make it into a wheel. If you're got one spike where you're exceeding, but all the others you're not, that wheel's going to be very bumpy as well. So you don't want a little wheel that's zeros and everything, but you certainly want to be at least balanced, and then working to improve that balance all the time and catch up. You don't want to give up your good financials if it means it's going to create a problem in other spheres while trying to catch up.
And you might need a mentor. Like, a lot of dentists have clinical mentors, but how many dentists have leadership mentors or your health mentor? It could be your doctor if they're in shape. It could be a lifestyle coach. But most people think of a mentor, they think of business. But community mentor, like, who do I look to as community, as a speaker? Who do I look to who's a great orator? And again, sometimes the clinical mentor may not be a good physical mentor because they're wheezing as they're talking to you. Or the community mentor, the last time they did a crown was 10 years ago. So I'm not anywhere near having all 7 maxed out, but I think just to acknowledge there's other sides to being a complete human creates an awareness. All the mystics over time said, awareness is the first way to change. Just knowing that you haven't you haven't sat on a scale to weigh yourself in 3 years might be a sign your physical sphere is off. Or the last time you read a book was, Shakespeare in high school. It might be time to do some other thing other than an implant course. So just a different way of looking at it, different way of looking at life. And I think it adds more texture when you start thinking of yourself in other ways other than to be a dentist. Because a lot of dentists, when they retire, they lose all sense of fulfillment because they completely identified as being a dentist. And they say dentists, if they retire without a hobby or something else, they live another 24 months. So to know yourself as a dad or a community person, besides being a dentist, are you a good friend? Are you giving back to your community other than writing checks for a charity? Have you gone down to the high school and at a career day and shared your experience? So it's definitely makes life more interesting when we have more of our spheres above 5, if you think of it on a scale of 1 to 10.
What's interesting, while you've been mentioning all those things, every one of those things is able to be measured, even if it's, as we know, people measure dollars in the bank. But when you were talking about having a mentor, your mentor is going to keep you accountable, and you can't keep people accountable just on feelings. And getting back to health, people say, "Well, I feel well, I look well," but what are your bloods? What's your weight? Some people say you're obsessed if you weigh yourself every morning, but how do you know if you're slipping? How do you reverse trends if you don't know you're on a trend? I always used to say, Uche, when I'd ask clients, dentists, tell me about your practice. How many new patients do you get a month? If that number ended in a 0, I knew they didn't know their numbers because I wanted them to tell me, I had 33 this month and 24 the month before, and I want exact numbers. And then the next question is, what's your turnover? And they say, if it ends in 3 zeros or 4, if it's in 4 zeros, they don't even know their numbers. So they say, it's either 60 or 70,000. Well, that's 10,000 difference. That's a lot of difference. Which one is it?
Yeah.
Give me right numbers.
Love
Even how long since you spoke to your father? How many how many hours do you spend in community, doing stuff? It's not just about the dollars you donate. It's about the time and measuring that time as well. Same with exercise. It took me forever to get a question that people could answer about flossing. Because you say, do you floss? I go, yeah, I floss. How do you follow that? And then they say, you know what I ask them? I say, do you floss 14 times a week? Like they go, oh no. They nearly always go, oh no, 4. And of course, that's just twice a day. If you say twice a day, then if they do it once a week, they think that's close to twice a day. But if you go 14 times a week, that's measurable, but it also shows that you can be way off at 1 or 2 times a week. Only if something gets stuck in my teeth. But measuring it's really important. But I love that. I'm going to, as soon as this is over, I'm going to go start looking at those 7 spheres. And I know that I'm out of whack on some. So but like I mentioned before, I made that decision in 2005. I was a 93 kilo. I was a wardrobe with a head on it. That's what I described my body. It was like a wardrobe with a head on it. And I thought, no, it's got to be proportionate. And so to lose 20 kilos was quite the challenge, and to keep it off, because it went up and then it came down. It never got more than 80.
But look, though, you did it,
yeah.
David, and I think it's surprising. You can't wear your bank account when you walk into a room. You can't wear your community experience when you walk into a room. You can't wear your spirituality walking into a room. But fitness is something that people can tell right away. Shoulders back, bright smile, flat stomach, immediately recognized as someone who's got some discipline. So obviously you lost the 20 kilos. But you can't tell them someone's spiritual practice, community, intellectual till they open up their mouth. But physically, Fitness, there's actually a book called Why Some Men Lead and Other Men Follow. And it was our prehistoric caveman predilection to the fittest or the strongest person was always seen as the leader. Genghis Khan was a formidable person. Attila the Hun,
Yes.
formidable person. Napoleon, there's a paradox where he was 5'2", so let's not. So it's not like gravity. There's no law here. It's a trend, right? People say, how about Napoleon, 5'2"? But it was all about the fact that the tallest kid in the playground is the one, if you needed directions and you stopped at a playground, you looked for the tallest kid. So there's something about height and fitness and energy that makes people want to follow you. When you think of political leaders who lack energy or lack a sense of vitality and enthusiasm are always seen as something that I'm not going to vote for. But energy and fitness is something you can read in someone's posture and body language and tone of their voice. But that book, How to Lead, Why Some People Lead and Other People Follow, says people love being led or will look to someone who has energy and fitness and vitality to lead them. It's pretty rare you'll find someone who's lackluster, poor posture, and diminutive as a leader. It's just fascinating. This is going back millions of years of human history. Homo sapien, 400,000 years. The tribe thought the tallest guy, tallest woman, was seen as the one that would be someone that you'd look to for direction.
I'm at that age now, Uche, where I'm becoming a little old man, though. I think I'm 2 inches shorter than I used to be, or I'm just hanging around with a lot of Amazon men.
Maybe.
But and sometimes I'll call them out. I'll be in a bar and I'll see this guy and I go, "How tall are you?" And it's funny. Some of them they go, "Oh, I'm only 6'3," and he's 6'6". He's actually playing it down, that height difference. But
too, though, it's funny. As much as we talk about size as being one factor, intellectual and enthusiasm has no container size. And we live so much of our lives now online, we don't know how tall anyone is. Sylvester Stallone, 5'6". Tom Cruise,
Yes.
5'7".
Yes.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, people think is a giant. He's 5'11".
Yeah.
Look at Kevin, who's a gentleman, Kevin is a comedian that hangs out with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Anyway, is diminutive. Napoleon, 5'2". So I would rather have a big personality. Madonna's 5'1". Ariana Grande, 5 feet tall. Kim Kardashian, 5'1". So people are always surprised when they see people in person because the online world, no one knows how big you are. So you could be a giant online and be tiny in person. But most of us live our lives online, So it's so you might go into bars with lots of rugby players, but in the dental world, you're a giant. You're a giant of a man, and that's where you get paid.
Did you ever see Michael Gerber on stage?
Is he a tall guy? Is he the sleep
No,
guy, the breath guy?
the first thing that comes out of his mouth is he goes, "I know what you're thinking." He says, "Little guy, big mouth,"
Okay.
because he's only about 5'2".
I see. Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that revolutionary concept about E-myth, such a concept. But you're expecting some guy who's a giant on stage, and he's just this little old guy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'd rather have a giant intellect and a big heart than and be small than be massive and then disappoint people. There's something about heart and mind that goes a long way. I think that'll take us further. There's a lot of 6'3" people that don't have any depth. So there's something about seeing beyond the physical, even though obviously that's paradoxical, right? We talked about why some people lead, other people follow. But you look at, I'm reading a book right now, Eckhart Tolle. It's called Oneness with All Life. And he said, truly, the more we hang on to our physical stuff, like our money, our car, our offices, the more suffering we have when we lose them. So he said, sometimes life teaches you as your kids grow up and leave you. You've talked to someone who's 1995, they talk about a lot of their friends have died. He said, when you reconcile that, when you hold on to something tightly, like your fitness or your family or your kids or your car, your dream car, the more suffering you have. So this book, Oneness with All Life, start looking at yourself as a consciousness or a spirit rather than this 5'10" guy who bills 7 figures a year, 4 cars, 2 houses, 14 offices, because there will be some suffering if you hang on to the physical.
Of course there is, and I think they're very rare, those people who build these multiple site businesses. Most dentists are just like one site or maybe two sites, but you soon learn, as you mentioned, that you can't be in more than one place at a time. And certainly every time you add a site, you're adding more overhead. And often if you're a really good producer, it's hard to duplicate yourself even within your own office with associate dentists as well. So you become the person that holds it all together. I find when people can actually pull themselves out and still create a business that works without them in dentistry, that is a very unique thing. But as we've already discussed, they might be saying their business is great because they've got lots of people around them, but they might have just lots of headaches and lots of problems, and it may not be as relaxing as we would think it would be to have such a big organization to manage and run. Interesting. Let's go back to the fitness though, because again, that's something that I found that when I lost that weight and I started, it was 20 years ago, it was the beginning of 2005 and I was 93 kilos. I found that in losing that weight, that actually changed my whole mindset about being able to do lots of things, because I thought if I can do that, if I can lose it and keep it off without surgery and without, in fact, one of my doctors said, well, how did you do it? When I told him, he goes, so you just basically changed habits. You just stopped eating large meals, stopped eating between meals and started moving more. You ate less and moved more. And I said, well, that's it. It's in the mind. If you can create a habit in your mind, and I guess that's also how people can create financial habits. But physically, as you said, clearly the world can see you look different. The world can see you look better, that you look healthy, and you can see that yourself as well. So it's inspiring. You don't have to look at your bank account every day for justification. As soon as most homes have a mirror, most bathrooms have a mirror, and so you can look in that mirror and say, I'm looking all right.
Well, it gives you
And
choices. I think when you're healthy, there's a quote or a saying that when you're healthy, you have 1,000 choices. When you're not healthy or you're sick, you have one desire to get healthy. So there's something about being pain-free, mobile, able to live independently that allows you to be everything of who you are. If Elon Musk had sciatica or he's got a cancer diagnosis, he would give half his fortune to be healthy again. To give an idea, if people put a price tag on being healthy, people would trade everything to get their life back. If you knew that this was going to be your last day on the planet and you could extend it one more year, anyone who's a billionaire would give everything away to have 12 more months. So there's something about vitality and health that's priceless. I think Ralph Waldo Emerson said, health is our first wealth. And truly, I'd say 80% of people do not have a regular exercise habit. Only 20% of people do something. But it's that easy, if you actually start taking care of yourself, you start moving in that direction, it's a beautiful thing.
So how does somebody do that, Uche? Somebody comes to you and they say, I have no physical fitness resume. I've got no dietary control or plan. I can't remember the last time I had a McDonald's meal, if you call them meals. It's a discipline that I just don't partake of. And when I started losing weight, I stopped eating potato chips and I stopped eating French fries, both bad. And I stopped eating the majority of chocolate as well, just gone. So how do people do that? Is it tough? People say, oh, I can't give up my coffee. I can't give up this. I can't give up that. How do they start?
Yeah, there's many ways to start. There's no one path to start. Some people start when they're super sick. They're on their deathbed and they begin to eat healthy. Others just have a simple desire. I love the word called metacognition. Cognition means when you become aware of something in your life. So someone can have a four-letter word language. They F-bombs, they swear all the time until they hear someone in their team saying, hey, doc, you swear like 3-4 times a day. No, I don't. And they let off an F-bomb. Being aware of something is called metacognition. And that means you start being aware of what you're doing. And that starts the change happening. I'd rather change because I would like to rather than I have to. Having a heart attack, you survive it. That now you're behind the 8 ball. So to start, there's many ways to start. You can do it because of competition. Many people do it because they're going to have a high school reunion or a dental school reunion, which is kind of so cliche. It never lasts. Some people start because they're going to have a birthday ending in 0, 40, 50, 60. Some people do it because they want to get a new headshot. But now with computer graphics and AI, you don't have to be in shape and you get a great headshot. But many ways to start. There's no one way. But if I literally need to see what someone has. Like, show me what's in your refrigerator. And I can totally tell almost to the disease what they have. If I see fast food, I see regular soda, I see no vegetables, I see no fruit. If they don't own any sneakers or runners, I know there's going to be knee and hip issues. If I know they sit 70% of the waking time, I know they're going to have some hip replacements in store. So there's something about starting. There's no one way to start. But ultimately, I look at 5 pillars: how you're sleeping, how much do you move in terms of your exercise habits, your diet, which is the third one. Fourth, how you manage stress. Fifth, do you get outside? There's a neuroscience now has shown that we need morning sun. And anyone that doesn't have morning sun will always sleep poorer. And being exposed to sunlight before 10 a.m. resets the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the center of your brain. The suprachiasmatic nucleus is 20,000 neurons, tiny. But what it does is, when you expose your skin and your eyes and your hands to morning sun, your primordial caveman, cavewoman system says, you're alive for another day. And it resets that circadian rhythm. And now you can go to sleep faster. You will sleep deeper, independent of everything else, simply by being exposed to morning sun. So those are my 5 pillars: sleep, exercise, nutrition, how you manage stress, and do you get sunlight on your skin and hands and eyes, say mid-morning, 10 o'clock, 11 a.m. So to look at those pillars. Some people don't go outside all day and they're on 8 cups of coffee. Some people call working out filling the bathtub on Saturday night and pulling the plug and fighting the current. Some people think plyometrics is jumping to conclusions. I remember I heard a prosthodontist ask me, he goes, Uche, what do you mean when you keep talking about whole foods? What do you mean whole foods? Again, I just assume what I know everyone knows. A whole food is something that doesn't have an ingredients list on it. An apple, an avocado, a piece of good steak. That's a whole food. Anything processed or ultra processed is going to take us down a path of inflammation, getting diseases with that ends in itis.
I love that the whole food. My daughter showed me this healthy thing that she was buying at the grocery store. When I looked at it, it had so much sugar in it. It was like more than 50% sugar. I'm going, what's going on? That's not healthy at all. And it was marketed as something healthy. Diet we've covered. Tell me about sleep. How much sleep should people get?
Yeah, there used to be a thing in the 80s. Remember 1980s? I'll sleep when I'm dead. You will die sooner. Scientist Matthew Walker out of Berkeley has shared that 7 hours is the sweet spot. Over 9, it's something called hypersomnia, which is actually a sign of disease. So between 7 to 9 hours is the sweet spot. And if you look at 90-minute cycles, there's a 90-minute sleep cycle in adults. Babies have a 1-hour cycle. We need about 4 to 6 to 7 cycles of 90 minutes to have a complete night. And there's no way around it. They literally said the poor sleeper will always have more inflammatory conditions than the good sleeper. 2 dentists of equal ability. The poor sleeper will always underperform, will always have less emotional regulation, will always fly off the handle, will always have more joint issues, will always have more brain fog. The good sleep will have a better memory. And because we process emotion and memory during dreaming, during rapid eye movement sleep, which sleep scientists now say we need to sleep about 100 minutes a night altogether, the person who dreams more will be more creative, have a better memory, and be more emotionally regulated. Most of us think, IQ is important. But I often share in my lectures that you can be a homeless person with a high IQ, but you will not find a homeless person who's emotionally regulated. Because if you're emotionally regulated, you will have no resentments. You'll be able to say, I'm sorry. You're a good communicator. And the best way to become more emotionally regulated is to be a good sleeper. Because when you have that rapid eye movement sleep, the brain processes emotion and you're more able to take the lessons from today and bring them into tomorrow and also put past you things that no longer make sense. So insomniacs and poor sleepers always have vivid memories of negative and sad events. like PTSD. You could be, away from the war for 4 years, but if you're a poor sleeper, when that car backfires, what happens? It seems like yesterday, but a good sleeper allows negative events to dissipate and they become more black and white to your memory. So good sleep processes emotion and processes memory. So I know it's a loaded answer, but there's so much to being a good sleeper that will make us do everything better, including being a good dentist.
I'm going off on a tangent here, but with sleep, how do you different? Obviously, there's quality of sleep, but quality of sleeping environment. Is it better to sleep in a dark room? I think you and I have discussed the sleeping. I know Steve Olmos used to talk about sleeping with lights on, like how bad it was. Even the red light of a digital clock or the green light of a light switch can, even though it's in a corner and you've got your eyes closed, it can still change the quality of your sleep. What about people who live by a motorway or live by a railway line? Does that change the quality of their sleep?
Yeah, sound, light, vibration. You might sleep, but you're not going to sleep deep. Think back 50,000 years, 500,000 years. The only light you had after sundown was the light of a fire, red light, orange light. So my whole house, I have 8 Himalayan salt lamps in my house, from small to large. They duplicate the light from the caveman fire. I have a strip of LED lights around a large mirror in the hallway. And you might come to my house and think, Uche, is this Amsterdam, the red light district? I said, no, this is the light that sets the tone for good sleep, because the more amber, orange, and red lights you have, the healthier your sleeping environment. And it takes a bit of discipline to go out and buy these lights. People look at their fridge, which also wakes up your brain. Anything longer than 12 seconds, your brain now is woken up. You go out to the garage and you put the garbage out, the brain has woken up, 12 seconds. So there's certain glasses you can wear that downplays the blue light. But ideally, it's a dark room, a cool room. So, under 18 degrees Celsius at nighttime allows you to sleep deeper. They've actually shown that insomniacs often have hotter bodies. Not hot as in Farrah Fawcett or Angela Jolie, hot as in body temperature. So people who sleep deep always have cooler skin to the touch. And when you're not sleeping and tossing and turning, feel your forehead. It's always warm. So there's something about cooling that allows you to sleep. So there's actually sheets you can buy. There's a Sleep 8 sheets. There's a mattress. And you can get really, you can really spend your way out of this. A lot of dentists think, oh, I'll just buy a mattress. No. You got to learn how to have reverence for sleep first. When you have reverence, you will jump into bed and look at the amount of time you're going to spend in bed. And you want minimum 7 hours if you want to have good emotional intelligence or to have a good memory. Everyone sees memory as a sign of intelligence. Someone can't remember anything. It's always seen as a sign of slow cognitive decline. And they've actually shown people who have Alzheimer's, their hippocampus, which is the seat of your short-term memory, is 50% the size of someone who doesn't have Alzheimer's. So something about memory that dictates your cognitive ability, your mental clarity, your brain reserve.
Fascinating. I find with the amount of sleep I have, it's often broken, but the best sleep I seem to have is always the hour and a half or 2 hours before my alarm goes off.
Oh.
Which is really, really weird, because I'll always check my clock every time I wake and just say, all right, I've had this much sleep. It's usually in 90-minute lots, and then I wake for some reason, and then I go back to sleep. But I feel most rested, even if I've had, like last night, I think it was 5.5 or 6 hours only because I was up early to exercise. But that last hour and a half, when the alarm goes off, it's not like, oh, there's that damn alarm. It's kind of like, okay, all right, time to get up, and I'm at peace.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, you might be, again, I think they've actually shown we dream more in that last 4 hours. So that last 4 hours is really important for memory consolidation and emotional processing. That's why people who get up super early before they want to are sabotaging their memory consolidation, emotional regulation. Hence, shift workers, firefighters, new mothers, nurses. There's massive nursing studies, 200,000 people. Nurses are higher incidence of ovarian cancer of women, endometrial issues, breast cancer, simply by it's not stress, it's the nighttime slumber is disturbed. But in that last 2, 3, 4 hours, though, we have higher rates of spending time in REM. Not that we don't dream early in the night, but we dream more as the night goes on. Deepak Chopra, a medical doctor, said the first 4 hours of your night is the time that your body repairs the physical body. The last 4 hours is the time that your the body repairs, that the emotional body is repaired. So you enjoy that last little bit because you're healing and recovering and restoring your mental, emotional body. So it's interesting to start looking at things. That's why people who hit the snooze 3, 4, 5 times are really destroying that ability to have a good memory and emotional processing. They say, wake up once and get up. But when people hit the snooze 3, 4, 5, 6 times, not that you can do it once a week, twice a week, but if that's the habit, it's really interrupting your memory consolidation and emotional processing.
I've got so much homework to do after this call, Uche. I think you're stimulating everybody that. Well, I think the message is that if you think you're going okay, you need to reassess because nobody's going okay. There is more that we can do in all spheres to improve what we're doing on this planet at the moment. You know, in our spiritual, our community, our financial, our relationships at home. It's really, really important. I think I just saw a thing. A friend of mine just posted on social media that he's a speaker on customer service, but he said one of the most life-changing things he had to do this last week was to marry his daughter and her husband, and he was the celebrant for that service. And the words that he spoke about the journey that they were going to go on, and the fact that my friend also had a long marriage, as well. And he said it just helped him to feel that completeness. And sometimes
Mhm.
you wonder, especially those poor people who accidentally went to a Coldplay concert and their lives have been
Yeah.
totally destroyed.
Yes.
And you think, well, maybe there is something in that life is a journey, and it's also a
Mhm.
journey of adaptation and
Mhm.
improvement and working on things,
I
and
love
it's
that.
important. I think that you embody that in the physical thing, that you just can't go into your office as a dentist, sit down on your stool and stay there all day, because that's where all the physical issues do arise. The fact of the immobility, and not getting out and about. I used to marvel at a couple of old dentists when I moved into my town in 1987. They were out walking every lunchtime. These two old guys, off they'd go for a walk every lunchtime,
Nice.
and I thought,
Nice.
well, they just get out of the office, breathe the air, see the sunlight. Whereas a lot of dentists, and I was one of them, I used to always joke. I said, I'm always getting a 5-minute lunch hour. That's it. That's all it ever was. I used to make my own lunch because I didn't know when I was going to get that 5 minutes.
Yes.
And that can't be good for you, and that can wind you up as well. And so retirement, one of the things that I've noticed, and I'm helping some of my friends with this, that as they retire, you do unwind. You do physically unwind, but you've got to be able to control that and enjoy it and not let it frustrate you that you're now not, that go sort of dentist anymore. But I think working on the fitness is important. And I'm so glad that I had the opportunity of getting fit before I left dentistry, as opposed to, as you said, having a catastrophic departure from my way of life and then having to rebuild.
Mhm.
And I think that's what, yes, yeah, you use that line, and we all used to say it, I'll sleep when I'm dead, but that's not the answer. It's about everything in moderation, but having a goal of fitness. Uche, you mentioned too that have we got time to talk about supplements? Can you talk about
Yeah, we could.
supplements
Yeah,
and
it's important because
nutrition?
people look for shortcuts, and food is number one. Sleep, managing stress, getting morning light, exercising. Supplements are an add-on. They're an add-on. I'd rather have food first. I'd rather have the olive than the olive oil. I'd rather have the apple than the apple juice. I'd rather have the meat than the creatine. But most people don't eat a pound of meat a day. So creatine, which is a pretty powerful supplement, bodybuilders know in the 90s was amazing for giving you energy and explosive power. But scientists now shared that creatine actually makes your memory better and slows down cognitive decline. So it's not just for the teenage bodybuilder. The 50 plus crowd could benefit from a teaspoon of creatine every day. And to give you an idea of how much creatine is important, uh, it takes 2 pounds of meat to get a teaspoon of creatine. So people, as they get older, Show me a 60, 70, 80, 90-year-old that eats a pound to 2 pounds of meat. But paleoanthropologists and David Suzuki, Daniel Lieberman of Harvard, said when mankind or womankind invented that fire and started cooking food, the prefrontal cortex, the brain grew and the intestine shrank. So we became more social and cooperative when we had a bigger prefrontal cortex. This is where the executive functioning happens. As it grew with meat consumption and we got 2,000 calories in half an hour eating a cooked saber-toothed tiger. What happens is this prefrontal cortex grew. So something about creatine can help you if someone is experiencing cognitive decline. They've actually now shown, because the brain is such an exercise hog, the phosphocreatine that your body makes when you get creatine can actually slow down dementia. Even people with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's have now been shown to actually slow down the decline if they take a teaspoon of creatine every day. Of course, you have to stay hydrated because creatine on its own can dehydrate you. But if someone's ready for it, obviously I'm not going to tell someone, you stay on the medications that your doctor tells you. But neuroscientists have now shown that creatine helps you cognitively stay sharper. This is powerful because every dentist will say, if I ever lose my brain, shoot me. So if you value our brain, creatine would be the supplement I'd say as to add on, way more important than vitamin C. If vitamin C was popular a long time ago, now we don't even talk about vitamin C anymore. Vitamin E went out with popularity in the 90s. So I would say teaspoon of creatine a day. I love my cod liver oil, my Norwegian cod liver oil, because DHA is one of the omega-3s, has 500 functions in the brain. DHA has 500 functions. And only 1 in 7 adults in North America get enough fish oil or fish in their diet for cognitive health. So a big reason why people call you stupid is because you don't eat enough fish. You don't get cod liver oil. So I have a tablespoon of cod liver oil every day. 80% of us don't have enough magnesium. Magnesium's in beans, nuts, and lentils. 80% of people don't have enough magnesium. And magnesium helps to facilitate muscular relaxation and allows the nervous system to relax. So I take a magnesium supplement every day. So magnesium, cod liver oil, and creatine are my go-to, or go-3 if you want to look at it.
Excellent tip there. Uche, you mentioned before we went live that you do some coaching and you've spoken over 700 meetings. Is that what you said?
I've given 700 lectures probably in the last 20 years. So 7 or 8 countries, 700 times. So I could do it in my sleep. It's who I am. I love it. But I love one-on-one too. Like whether it's patients chairside, patients love a healthcare provider that sees all of them. So I love the one-on-one with patients. I love coaching people. I get emails and DMs from people all the time saying, Uche, I have this situation. How do I take it my life's next level? Or Uche, I have this condition. How can I slow down my decline? Uche, I'm 70. I'm 40 pounds overweight. What do I do next? So I love helping my colleagues, like, doctor, dentist, teacher. That's who I am. So whether it's a friend or a colleague, chairside or on the phone, it's dear to my heart.
What's the best way for people to get in contact with you after watching and listening to this podcast?
My website's it's great because I have tons of videos there. It's literally, DRUCHE. So DRUCHE.com. And that's actually, I guess, can be in the show notes, David.
Yes.
Other way is I'm on Instagram, and my Instagram account is Fit Speakers. So Fit Speakers. People can see me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's just my first and last name, Uche Odiatu. They can even spell it wrong and they'll find me in the top 3 of the searches. If you Google Uche Fitness Odiatu Dentist, you'll find me. I know there's a few famous football players, soccer players that go by the first name Uche. So if you put Uche Dentist Fitness, you'll find me. But no one is invisible anymore. You can Google or search anyone and you will find your grade 10 teacher. You will find what you need if you look online. So there's no reason why people can't find me. I'm available.
All right. Well, Uche, they'll appear in the show notes. We've come to the end. You said you only wanted to talk for half an hour, and we're at nearly 57 minutes. So we've done very well, and you've fascinated me, and I'm sure you've fascinated all our listeners. And they'll be looking up their 7 pillars. They'll be looking at how they sleep. They'll be looking at their supplements, and hopefully they'll be getting in touch with you about how to improve their lives and turn them around. Not next month, next year, but turn them around today or tomorrow. I think that tomorrow's the first day of the rest of your life, and the longest journey begins with the first step. So take that first step and work out your food, work out your fitness, and then start it and then improve it. Uche, thanks so much for being a guest on the Ultimate Dental Podcast. It's been great to catch up. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I love the questions. I love sharing. It's dear to my heart to help my colleagues. So if any one of us can move that needle or take our lives, take one of those 7 spheres and move it, you and I have done good work in the last hours. So thank you for the opportunity.
Lovely. Thanks, Uche.
Thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of our dental community and joining us each week on this incredible journey. If you found value in today's episode and you don't want to miss out on future episodes packed with expert insights and actionable strategies, here's how you can stay connected with us. Firstly, hit that subscribe button. Whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform or watching on our website, subscribing ensures you'll never miss an episode. Secondly, share the love. If you know a fellow dentist or colleague who could benefit from the wisdom and knowledge that we share here, please share our podcast with them. Also, please share the podcast on your socials by simply clicking on the social icons wherever you view or listen to this podcast. Together, we can all do our bit to elevate the dental profession. And finally, stay engaged with us. We love hearing from you. Your questions, comments, and feedback fuel our mission to provide the best content for your professional growth, your personal growth, and for your practice growth. Remember, your journey to creating a dental practice and a business life that you love is our mission, and we're excited to be your trusted guide along the way. Thank you for being a part of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. Until next time, keep smiling, keep striving, and keep on tuning in to the Ultimate Dental Podcast.